I gave all my money to my parents to throw an unforgettable party for my son, but when I arrived at the hall, the party was for my spoiled older brother. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories and leave your like on the video. I never thought I'd be raising my daughter alone at 34, but here we are. My name is Vanessa, and life has a funny way of stripping away everything you thought was permanent. When my ex-husband walked out 3 years ago, he didn't just leave me. He abandoned our 4-year-old daughter without a backward glance. No explanation, no child support, just gone. I remember standing in our half-empty apartment, holding her tiny hand while she asked when Daddy was coming home. I had no answer then, and I still don't have one that makes sense. But I refused to let his abandonment define us. I worked my way up to logistics manager at a mid-sized distribution company, and I'm damn good at what I do. The pay is decent enough to keep us comfortable in our 2-bedroom apartment, and my daughter has everything she needs. Clothes, toys, a good school. She's 7 now, and watching her grow into this sweet, thoughtful little person makes every overtime shift worth it. What doesn't make it worth it is my family. Specifically, my parents and their golden child, my younger brother. I've known since childhood that I was the responsible one, the dependable daughter who didn't need attention or praise. My brother, though, he's always been the star of every family gathering, the one whose dreams matter, whose failures are just temporary setbacks that require everyone else's sacrifice. When I was 16 and saving for college, they bought him a professional camera for his artistic journey. When I was 23 and working 2 jobs to pay off student loans, they funded his trip to Europe to find himself. The pattern never changed. I was expected to be self-sufficient while he was encouraged to chase every whim. 2 years ago, things got worse. My brother decided he wanted to study fashion design at one of those expensive private schools that charge more per semester than most people make in 6 months. The tuition alone is crushing, nearly $40,000 a year. When my parents couldn't cover it entirely, guess who they called? My mother used that special tone she reserves for guilt trips, explaining how this was his big opportunity, how he'd finally found his calling, how family helps family. I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to say no. But the pressure was relentless. My father called it investing in his future. My mother said I was being selfish, that I made good money and could afford it. They never asked about my daughter's future, never considered that I might want to save for her education or our security. The unspoken rule was clear. My needs, our needs, would always come second to whatever my brother wanted, so I agreed. I've been paying $12,000 a year for his fancy design school. $12,000 that could be in my daughter's college fund. $12,000 that could be our emergency savings. Instead, it's funding my brother's designer sketch pads and fabric samples while he posts pictures on social media of his creative process at trendy coffee shops. And has he thanked me? Not once. Last month, when I mentioned I couldn't afford to replace my aging car, he actually suggested I budget better, while wearing a $300 jacket I'd indirectly paid for. My mother defended him, saying he's under a lot of stress with his studies. My father just shrugged, as if my brother's entitlement was as natural as breathing. The worst part is watching my daughter notice the imbalance. Last Christmas, my parents showered my brother with expensive gifts. A new laptop, professional sewing equipment, gift cards. My daughter got a small toy and a card with $20. She didn't complain, but I saw the confusion in her eyes when my brother didn't even thank anyone, just complained that the laptop wasn't the exact model he wanted. I lie awake some nights, doing the math in my head. 2 years of payments, 1 more year until he graduates. Can I make it? Should I make it? The resentment builds like pressure in my chest, but I push it down because that's what I've always done. I'm the responsible one, the one who doesn't rock the boat, the one who sacrifices. But something's been shifting inside me lately. Maybe it's watching my daughter grow up and knowing I want better for her. Maybe it's the way my brother dismissed her last week when she showed him a drawing she'd made, barely glancing at it before returning to his phone. Maybe I'm just tired of being the family's ATM while being treated like an afterthought. I don't know what's going to break first, my bank account or my patience, but I can feel something coming, like a storm gathering on the horizon. For now, I keep my head down, work my shifts, and plan my daughter's 7th birthday party. At least there, I can create something beautiful just for her, where she's the center of attention for once, where someone in this family actually celebrates her existence. The idea came to me 3 months ago while watching my daughter at school pickup. She was standing apart from the other kids, clutching her backpack straps, looking small and uncertain. Then one of her friends called her name, and I watched this transformation happen. Her face lit up, her shoulders relaxed, and suddenly she was laughing and animated. That's when I knew I had to do something extraordinary for her 7th birthday. My daughter is naturally shy. At home, she's quiet and thoughtful, content to color or read in her room. But around her small circle of school friends, she becomes this different kid, confident, giggly, full of life. Those friendships are precious to her, and I wanted to celebrate that. More than that, I wanted to give her one day where she felt like the most important person in the world. Because God knows my family never makes her feel that way. I started researching venues immediately. Most of the places in our area were either too expensive or too run down. Then I found Riverside Gardens, this beautiful event space with outdoor facilities that looked like something out of a magazine. They had a heated pool, a playground area with climbing structures, and a covered pavilion for food and cake. It was perfect. It was also expensive. The coordinator quoted me $5,000 for a Saturday afternoon package. $5,000. I sat in my car after that initial meeting, staring at the number written on their brochure. That was more than I'd ever spent on anything that wasn't rent or car payments. It was almost half of what I paid yearly for my brother's tuition, a thought that made my stomach turn. But then I thought about my daughter's face when she saw those friends. I thought about how she'd spent Christmas watching my brother get spoiled, while she received almost nothing. I thought about how she never complained, never threw tantrums, never demanded attention. She deserved this. She deserved one perfect day that was entirely hers. So I said yes to Riverside Gardens and started planning. I set up a separate savings account and began transferring money automatically from each paycheck. $50 here, $100 there. I stopped buying coffee at work and packed lunches every day. I skipped the small treats I usually allowed myself. No new clothes, no dinners out, no impulse purchases. Every penny went into that account, watching the balance slowly climb toward $5,000. The planning became my obsession. I spent my lunch breaks researching themes and decorations. My daughter loved butterflies, so I decided on a garden theme with purple and pink everywhere. I ordered custom invitations with delicate butterfly designs. I spent hours creating a guest list of her classmates and the few kids from our building she played with sometimes. The coordinator at Riverside Gardens was wonderful. She helped me design every detail. The 3-tier cake would be vanilla with strawberry filling, my daughter's favorite, decorated with edible butterflies and flowers. We'd have the pool area set up with floaties and water toys. The playground would have a temporary canopy for shade. There'd be a face painting station, a balloon artist, and a professional entertainer who did magic tricks and games. I hired a photographer too, because I wanted to capture everything. Years from now, when my daughter looked back at these photos, I wanted her to remember feeling celebrated and loved. I wanted tangible proof that she mattered, that her happiness was worth investing in. The menu was another careful decision. I chose foods kids actually enjoy: mini pizzas, chicken tenders, fruit cups, veggie sticks with dip. Nothing fancy, just good food that would make the kids happy. And for the adults, because some parents would stay, I added sandwich platters and beverages. As the date approached, I watched my daughter's excitement build. She'd come home from school and update me on who'd RSVP'd yes. She drew pictures of what she thought the party would look like, filling pages with butterflies and swimming pools and smiling stick figures. At night, she'd ask me to tell her again about the 3-tier cake and the magic show. Her joy was infectious and heartbreaking at the same time, because I realized how rarely she asked for anything. 2 weeks before the party, I had my final meeting with the coordinator. We went over every detail: the timeline, the setup, the backup plan if it rained. She showed me photos of previous events they'd hosted, and each one looked magical. I signed the final contract and wrote the deposit check, feeling both excited and terrified. This was really happening. My savings account was nearly empty, but I didn't care. I'd eaten rice and beans for 2 months straight, and it was worth it. I'd watched my bank balance drop to scary levels, and it was worth it. Because in 3 days, my daughter would have the birthday party of her dreams. I didn't tell my family about the party details. My parents knew it was happening. They were invited, obviously, but I kept the specifics vague. Something in my gut told me not to advertise how much I was spending or how elaborate the plans were. Maybe I didn't want to hear my mother's criticism about being wasteful. Maybe I didn't want my brother knowing I could barely afford this while still paying for his school. Maybe I just wanted this one thing to be separate from their judgment and favoritism. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed imagining my daughter's face when she walked into Riverside Gardens and saw everything I'd created for her. I pictured her swimming with her friends, laughing at the magic show, blowing out the candles on that beautiful cake. Those mental images kept me warm despite the anxiety gnawing at my chest about money and work and everything else. This was going to be perfect. I'd made sure of it. Nothing could go wrong. Thursday afternoon, 2 days before the party, my boss called me into her office. I knew immediately something was wrong. She had that expression, the one that says she's about to ask for something unreasonable and expects me to comply without complaint. "We have a situation," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "The regional manager is flying in Saturday for an emergency audit. All department heads need to be present for a full operations review." My stomach dropped. Saturday? This Saturday? Yes. 9 in the morning. It'll probably run until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. She was already turning back to her computer, as if the conversation was over. "I can't," I said, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. "It's my daughter's birthday party. I've had it scheduled for months." She looked at me like I'd just told her I needed the day off to watch paint dry. "Vanessa, This is a critical meeting. The regional manager specifically requested all department heads be present. This isn't optional. I understand it's important, but nothing. Her tone hardened. I need you there. Your attendance reflects on this entire department. If you're not there, it sends a message that logistics isn't taking this seriously. I felt my chest tighten. Can we reschedule? Even just push it to Sunday? No. He's flying back Sunday morning. Saturday is the only option. She leaned forward, her expression shifting from annoyed to threatening. Look, I'll be blunt. We're heading into performance review season. Your presence at this meeting will be noted. Your absence will also be noted. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understood perfectly. Show up or face consequences for my career. Maybe not immediate termination, but definitely a black mark that would follow me. Smaller bonuses, being passed over for advancement, subtle retaliation disguised as business decisions. I'd worked in corporate environments long enough to know how it worked. I've been planning this party for 3 months, I said, hating how desperate I sounded. I've spent $5,000. My daughter is expecting— That's unfortunate timing, she interrupted. But this is part of being in management. Sometimes personal plans have to take a back seat to professional responsibilities. I'm sure your daughter will understand. She wouldn't understand. She was 7 years old. 7-year-olds don't understand that corporate audits matter more than birthday parties. They don't understand that their mother's job security depends on attending meetings that weren't scheduled until 2 days before. I left her office feeling sick. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I kept running scenarios through my mind, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. I couldn't lose this job. I was the sole provider for my daughter, and I was barely making ends meet as it was. But how could I miss her party? How could I look at her excited face and tell her I wouldn't be there? That evening, I sat at our small kitchen table with my phone in my hand, staring at my parents' contact information. I didn't want to ask them for help. Every instinct told me not to involve them. But what choice did I have? My mother answered on the third ring. Hello? Mom, I need to ask you something. I explained the situation quickly, the meeting, the timing, the impossible position I was in. So you want us to take her to the party? My mother asked. Yes. You and Dad were already planning to come. I just need you to pick her up, get her there by 2 o'clock when it starts, and stay with her until I can get there. The meeting should end by 3 or 4 at the latest. I'll come straight from the office. I won't miss the cake, I promise. There was a pause. I could hear my father's voice in the background asking what was going on. Hold on, my mother said. I heard muffled conversation. Then she came back on the line. Your father says that's fine. We'll pick her up at 1:30 and get her to Riverside Gardens. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Really, thank you. The coordinator knows what's happening. She has my number if anything comes up. Everything is already paid for and set up. You literally just need to be there with her. We can handle it. Vanessa, don't worry so much. And Mom, please make sure she has a good time. This party means everything to her. Of course. It'll be perfect. We'll take good care of our granddaughter. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust that they'd prioritize my daughter for once. But that nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. The next day was Friday. I worked like a machine, trying to clear my schedule so I could leave the moment the Saturday meeting ended. Every few hours, I'd check my phone, half hoping my boss would call to say the meeting was canceled. It never happened. That evening, I sat down with my daughter. She was coloring at the coffee table, humming to herself, completely unaware that her perfect day was about to get complicated. Hey, sweetie, I need to talk to you about tomorrow. She looked up, her face lighting up. My party? Yes, your party. So here's the thing. I have to go to work for a few hours in the morning, but Grandma and Grandpa are going to pick you up and take you to Riverside Gardens, and they'll stay with you until I get there. Her smile faltered. You won't be there when it starts? I'll be there for the important parts. I promise I'll be there when you blow out your candles. I wouldn't miss that for anything. But what about the pool and the magic show? Each question felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Grandma and Grandpa will be with you for all of that, and I'll get there as fast as I can. Okay? She nodded slowly, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She was trying to be brave about it, which somehow made it worse. I'm sorry, I said, pulling her into a hug. If I had any other choice, I'd be there from the beginning. You know that, right? I know, Mommy, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. And that night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room and wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. My parents had never put my daughter first. Why did I think tomorrow would be any different? But what else could I do? I had no other options. I had to trust them. I had to believe that this one time they'd come through. The meeting ran long. Of course it did. The regional manager was one of those people who loved the sound of his own voice, turning every simple question into a 20-minute lecture. By the time we finally wrapped up, it was already 3:45. I grabbed my purse and practically ran to my car, my heart pounding with anxiety about missing too much of the party. Traffic was worse than I expected. Every red light felt like a personal attack. I kept checking the time on my dashboard. 3:50, 4 o'clock, 4:15. I'd already missed the first hour and a half. My daughter would be in the pool by now, maybe watching the magic show. I pressed harder on the gas pedal, willing the cars ahead of me to move faster. I finally pulled into the Riverside Gardens parking lot at 4:20. The moment I stepped out of my car, I knew something was wrong. The sound hit me first. A deep, pulsing bass that vibrated through my chest. Electronic music, the kind you'd hear at a nightclub, not a 7-year-old's birthday party. My steps quickened as I walked toward the pavilion. Maybe they were just playing music between activities? Maybe the entertainer had finished and they were doing some kind of dance break? I was grasping for rational explanations even as my gut screamed that this was all wrong. Then I reached the entrance and my world tilted. The space I'd spent months planning was unrecognizable. The butterfly decorations were gone, replaced by metallic streamers and neon lights. The 3-tier cake I'd ordered, vanilla with strawberry filling and edible butterflies, sat untouched on a table, while next to it stood a completely different cake, some avant-garde creation with geometric black and gold designs. But it wasn't the decorations that made my blood run cold. It was the people. Everywhere I looked, there were adults. 20-something fashionably dressed people holding cocktails, laughing, dancing to music so loud I could barely think. Some were in the pool, not children playing with floaties, but grown adults with drinks in their hands, behaving like they were at a resort party. The playground equipment sat empty, the face painting station abandoned, and in the center of it all, like a peacock displaying its feathers, was my brother. He was dressed in some ridiculous designer outfit, a patterned silk shirt that probably cost more than my rent, skin-tight pants, and accessories that screamed, "Look at me." He was dancing, arms in the air, completely in his element, surrounded by people who were cheering him on. This was his crowd, his scene, his moment. My parents stood nearby, beaming like proud grandparents at a graduation. My mother was actually filming him on her phone. My father had his arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling like this was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there, frozen in disbelief, trying to process what I was seeing. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Where were the children? Where were my daughter's friends? Where was my daughter? "Excuse me, are you at the party?" A woman in a sparkly dress stumbled slightly as she approached me, clearly drunk. "What party is this?" I managed to ask. "Oh, it's for him." She pointed at my brother. "His birthday. 25, can you believe it? This place is amazing." 25. My brother's birthday wasn't until next week. I knew because I'd received the usual guilt-tripping calls about getting him a gift. My shock was rapidly transforming into something else, a cold, crystalline rage that made my vision sharp and my movements deliberate. I pushed through the crowd, scanning desperately for a small figure, for my daughter's face, for any sign of the party I'd planned. The coordinator spotted me and immediately started making her way over, her face pale with obvious distress. But I couldn't focus on her right now. I had to find my daughter. I checked the pool area, nothing but adults. The playground, empty. The food tables where children should have been eating pizza, covered with catered appetizers I hadn't ordered. My breathing was coming faster now, panic mixing with fury. Then I saw her. In the far corner of the pavilion, tucked behind some equipment boxes where the decorators had apparently dumped the butterfly decorations I'd bought, my daughter sat huddled on the ground. Her pretty party dress, the one she'd picked out weeks ago, the one with butterflies on it to match the theme, was crumpled around her. Her face was buried in her knees, her small shoulders shaking. I ran. I actually ran, pushing past people who gave me annoyed looks as I shoved through the crowd. The music was so loud, the laughter so overwhelming, and there she was, my baby, completely alone in the middle of this chaos. "Sweetie." I dropped to my knees beside her, pulling her into my arms. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes, her face streaked with tears. "Mommy," she sobbed, and the sound broke something fundamental inside me. "What happened? Tell me what happened." "Grandma said," she hiccuped, struggling to get the words out. "Grandma said the party was for Uncle, not me. She said I was being selfish for wanting my own party. She sent all my friends away." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "She sent your friends away?" "When they got here, Grandpa told their parents there was a mistake, that the party was canceled. Some of them were already here, Mommy. They were here, and Grandma made them leave. She said Uncle needed the venue for his real party. Where are your grandparents now?" My voice didn't sound like my own. It was too calm, too controlled, considering the volcanic rage building inside me. She pointed toward where I'd seen them earlier, still standing beside my brother, still smiling like nothing was wrong, like they hadn't just destroyed their granddaughter's birthday party, like they hadn't sent away a 7-year-old's friends and relegated her to crying alone in a corner while they celebrated their golden child. I stood up slowly, keeping my daughter's hand in mine. The coordinator had finally reached us and was trying to speak, but I held up my other hand to stop her. "Not yet," I said quietly. "First, I need to talk to my family." I walked toward my parents with my daughter's hand clutched in mine, each step feeling like I was approaching a cliff edge. The music pounded around us. People laughed and danced, completely oblivious to the devastation they were celebrating on top of. My mother saw me first. Her smile didn't even flicker. If anything, it got wider, as if she expected me to join in the celebration, as if this was all perfectly fine. "Vanessa, you made it. Isn't this wonderful? Your brother—" "Get out," I said. My voice was barely above a whisper, but somehow she heard me over the music. "What?" I said, "Get out. All of you, get out of this venue right now." My mother's smile finally faltered. "Vanessa, don't be dramatic. We can explain." "Explain?" I pulled my daughter closer to me. She was still crying, her small body trembling against my side. "Explain how you turned my daughter's birthday party into this? Explain how you sent her friends away? Explain why she's been crying alone in a corner for the past 2 hours?" My father stepped forward, his expression shifting from confusion to defensiveness. "Now wait just a minute. Your brother's birthday is next week, and we thought—" "You thought what? That you'd just steal the venue I paid for? The party I've been planning for 3 months?" "We didn't steal anything," my mother said, her tone taking on that familiar, condescending quality. "We simply made better use of the space. Your brother's birthday is coming up, and this venue was already booked. It made sense to combine them." "Combine them?" I felt like I was losing my mind. "There's nothing here for a 7-year-old. You didn't combine anything. You replaced her party with his." My brother finally noticed the commotion and sauntered over, still holding his cocktail. He looked annoyed that we were interrupting his celebration. "What's all the drama about?" "Your sister is upset," my father said, as if I was a toddler throwing a tantrum. "Of course she is," my brother said with an eye roll. "Look, it's not that big a deal. She's 7. She won't even remember this party in a few years. I'm 25, building my career in fashion. My network matters. These connections matter." He gestured broadly at his drunk friends. A kid's party would have been forgotten by next week anyway. Something inside me snapped. I'd spent years swallowing my anger, accepting their favoritism, paying for his expensive education while he showed no gratitude. But this was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Your career?" My voice came out like ice. "The career I'm funding? The $12,000 a year I pay for your fancy design school while I eat rice and beans to afford it?" My brother's face twitched with irritation. "That's an investment in the family's future. No, it's me being manipulated into supporting your entitled lifestyle. And now you've taken the one thing I wanted to give my daughter and turned it into another celebration of you." "You're overreacting," my mother interjected. "Children don't need elaborate parties. You're being wasteful anyway. Your brother has actual professional needs. She's 7 years old. This was supposed to be her day." My voice was rising now, drawing attention from the nearby guests. "You sent her friends away. You made her cry alone in a corner at her own birthday party." "She'll get over it," my father said dismissively. "Kids are resilient." The coordinator appeared at my elbow, looking increasingly distressed. I turned to her, still holding my daughter's hand. "Do you have the contract? The one I signed?" She nodded quickly and retrieved a folder from behind the nearby desk. I took it and held it up for everyone to see. "This contract," I said, my voice loud enough now that several partygoers had stopped dancing to watch, "has my name on it, my signature, my credit card number. I paid $5,000 for this venue, this date, this time slot. I paid for the butterfly decorations that are currently thrown in the corner. I paid for the 3-tier vanilla cake that nobody's touched. I paid for entertainment for children, not this." My brother scoffed. "So what? Mom and Dad were helping supervise anyway. They were supposed to supervise my daughter's party, not hijack it for you." "You're being selfish," my mother said, her voice sharp now. "Your brother needed—" "My daughter needed." I was shouting now, and I didn't care who heard. For once, just once, she needed to be the priority. But you couldn't even give her that. You couldn't let her have one afternoon where she mattered more than him. "This is ridiculous," my brother said, setting down his drink. "You're making a scene over nothing." "Nothing?" I looked at my daughter, at her tear-stained face, at the devastation in her eyes. "You think breaking a 7-year-old's heart is nothing? She'll forget about it," my mother insisted. "Children don't remember these things." "I won't forget," my daughter whispered. It was the first time she'd spoken since I'd found her. Her voice was small but clear. "I won't forget that you sent my friends away. I won't forget crying alone while everyone had fun at Uncle's party." My mother's face hardened. "Don't be melodramatic. We gave you plenty of birthdays before—" "No more," I cut her off. I turned to the coordinator, holding up the contract. "This is my event. I'm the one who paid. Can you please ask everyone who isn't on my original guest list to leave?" The coordinator looked relieved to finally have clear direction. "Absolutely. This is your contracted time slot." My brother's face turned red. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Get out. Take your friends, take your ridiculous cake, and get out of my daughter's party." The coordinator examined the contract, then looked up with firm resolve. I'm very sorry, but this is a private event under contract. I need to ask anyone not on the original guest list to exit the venue. My brother stepped forward, face flushed. That's insane. We've been here for 2 hours. You can't just kick everyone out. Actually, sir, I can, and I must. The person who holds the contract has exclusive rights to the space. That's legally binding. This is ridiculous, my brother spat. My parents arranged this. Your parents don't hold the contract. I must insist you and your guests vacate, or I'll call security. The coordinator walked to the DJ booth. Moments later, the electronic music cut off abruptly. The overhead lights blazed on, harsh fluorescent brightness that illuminated everything. The transformation was brutal. What looked glamorous in dim lighting now looked pathetic. Drunk people in ridiculous outfits standing in a children's venue. Spilled drinks visible on the floor. The untouched butterfly cake, an accusation on the table. People started looking around, confused and uncomfortable. Some grabbed their bags, clearly embarrassed. What's going on? Someone asked. Apparently we're at some kid's birthday party, another said. Realization dawning. I watched the truth spread through the crowd. People whispered, shooting glances at my brother, at me, at my daughter clinging to my side. Wait, did they really hijack a 7-year-old's party? Someone muttered. That's messed up. Most people left quietly, not making eye contact, but a few made comments as they passed. Dude, stealing a kid's party? That's low. Man, you couldn't get your own venue? Had to take it from a little girl? My brother's face grew redder with each comment, each departing guest. His carefully curated image was crumbling, and everyone was witnessing it. This is your fault, he shouted at me. You're ruining everything. This was supposed to be my moment. Your moment? My voice was cold. This was supposed to be her day, her 7th birthday. She's a child. She needed not to be betrayed by her own family. The last guest trickled out, leaving empty cups and scattered decorations. My brother grabbed his jacket, movements sharp with anger. You've always been jealous of me. This is just you trying to make everything about you. I almost laughed. I pay for your education. I sacrifice constantly. And you think I'm selfish? Whatever. Enjoy your pathetic party. I'm done here. He stormed to the exit, his remaining friends trailing behind. At the door, he turned back. I hope you're happy. You just humiliated me in front of everyone I know. Then he was gone. My parents stood near the DJ booth watching with expressions I couldn't quite read. Not shame. Something closer to disappointment, as if I'd done something wrong. You didn't have to make such a scene, my mother said. This could have been handled privately. My father added quietly. They walked toward the exit together, not looking back at their granddaughter, not acknowledging the tears she'd cried or the party she'd lost. They left as if they were the injured parties. And then they were gone too, and the venue was finally quiet. My parents stood there looking at me like I was the problem, like I was the one who'd done something unforgivable. That look, that familiar disappointment I'd seen my entire life, finally broke something inside me. You need to leave, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Both of you. Right now. My mother's expression shifted to confusion. Vanessa, let's just calm down and talk about this. Talk about what? I cut her off. Talk about how you hijacked my daughter's birthday party? How you sent her friends away? How you left her crying alone in a corner while you celebrated him? It was just a misunderstanding, my mother said, her tone placating. We thought we could combine the parties, make everyone happy. We can fix this. We can talk it through like adults. A misunderstanding? My voice was rising now. You deliberately took over her party. You told those children's parents it was canceled. You replaced everything I planned with his party. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. My father stepped forward, his jaw tight. You're being dramatic. Vanessa, this is exactly why we can't have reasonable conversations with you. You're always so inflexible, always making everything into a crisis. I'm being dramatic? I felt like I was going insane. My daughter spent hours crying alone at her own birthday party. And I'm being dramatic? She'll get over it, he said dismissively. You're going to destroy this family over one afternoon? Over your pride? That's what this is really about, isn't it? You can't stand that we were trying to help your brother. Help him? I was shouting now. And I didn't care. You destroyed your granddaughter's birthday to throw him a party he didn't even need. His birthday isn't until next week. You could have planned something separate, but instead you stole hers. We were being practical, my mother insisted. The venue was already booked, already paid for. Your brother has important connections, people who matter for his career. You thought my daughter doesn't matter. The words came out flat and cold. You thought she could be pushed aside one more time for him, just like always, just like her entire life. That's not fair, my father said. We love her. We're her grandparents. Love? I pulled my daughter closer to me. She was still crying softly against my side. You don't love her. If you loved her, you couldn't have done this. You couldn't have looked at her excited face this morning and known what you were planning to do. Vanessa, please. My mother tried again. Let's just sit down and discuss this calmly. We can make this right. Maybe we can reschedule her party for next weekend? No. The word came out like a gunshot. There is no discussion. There is no fixing this. You traumatized your own granddaughter to please the spoiled, entitled son you created. The son I've been funding for 2 years while he shows zero gratitude. Your brother is building his future. My father argued. He needs support. And she doesn't? I gestured to my daughter. She's 7 years old. She needed one day, one single day, where she felt important, where she felt celebrated. And you couldn't even give her that. You're overreacting, my mother said. But her voice was less certain now. Children are resilient. She won't even remember this in a few years. I'll remember, my daughter whispered. Her small voice cut through everything. I'll remember that you sent my friends away. I'll remember crying while everyone celebrated Uncle. My mother's face twitched, but she recovered quickly. Sweetheart, we didn't mean— Don't, I warned. Don't you dare try to minimize this to her. Don't you dare make her think her feelings don't matter. We're still her grandparents, my father said, his voice hardening. You can't just cut us out of her life because you're throwing a tantrum. A tantrum? I stared at him in disbelief. I'm protecting my daughter. I'm setting boundaries that should have existed years ago. You've spent her entire life showing her that she doesn't matter as much as him. That ends now. You're being ridiculous, my mother said sharply. We're family. You can't just— I can, and I am. My voice was steady now, cold with finality. You are never seeing her again. You are never coming to our home again. You are never going to get another chance to hurt her. Vanessa, think about what you're saying, my father tried. You're making a permanent decision based on one incident. One incident? I almost laughed. This is a lifetime of incidents. This is years of watching you prioritize him over everyone else. This is the final, unforgivable incident that proves you will never change. You're destroying this family, my mother said, and now I could hear tears in her voice. You're breaking us apart over pride and stubbornness. No, you destroyed this family the moment you decided my daughter's pain mattered less than his party. You did this. You made this choice. Now live with it. I picked up my daughter, holding her against my hip even though she was getting too big for it. She wrapped her arms around my neck and buried her face in my shoulder. Vanessa, wait. My mother reached out. I stepped back. Don't touch us. Don't call us. Don't come to our home. If you try to contact her, I will get a restraining order. I'm done. You can't mean that, my father said. I've never meant anything more in my life. I walked toward the exit, my daughter in my arms. Behind me, I could hear my mother saying something, my father calling my name. I didn't turn around. I didn't slow down. I just kept walking, putting distance between my daughter and the people who'd proven they would always hurt her. After my parents left, I stood in the middle of the wrecked venue holding my daughter, trying to figure out what to do next. The party was supposed to run until 6 o'clock. It was barely 5. I'd paid for this time, for this space, and my daughter deserved something good from this nightmare. I set her down gently and knelt in front of her, wiping the tears from her cheeks. Sweetie, I know today has been awful, but we still have time. We still have the cake, the pool, everything. Do you want to try to bring your friends back? She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. They already left, Mommy. I know, but maybe some of them could come back. Would you like me to try? She nodded slowly, hope flickering across her face despite everything. The coordinator approached us, her expression genuinely distressed. I am so sorry about what happened. I should have been monitoring the setup more closely. I had no idea they were replacing your daughter's party. It's not your fault, I said, though part of me wondered how she'd missed an entire party being hijacked. But I need your help now. Do you have contact information for the parents who brought children earlier? I have the guest list you provided with phone numbers. She pulled out her tablet. I'll help however I can. And please, I'd like to offer some complimentary additions to try to make up for this disaster. Additional time if you need it, extra food, whatever you want. Thank you. That's very kind. She handed me the tablet, and I started making calls. Each conversation was humiliating in its own way. I had to explain that yes, there had been a terrible mix-up with family members, but the party was actually happening now, and could their child please come back? The first 3 calls went to voicemail. The 4th parent answered but explained they'd already driven across town to another commitment. The apologetic tone in her voice made it clear she thought this whole situation was bizarre. I completely understand, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you anyway. The 5th call connected. Hello? Hi. This is Vanessa, the birthday girl's mom. I know there was confusion earlier, but the party is actually happening now. I'm so sorry for the mix-up. Would your daughter be able to come back? There was a pause. What exactly happened? My daughter said something about adults having a party? I took a breath. There was a serious miscommunication with family members. It's resolved now, and I'd really love for the kids to come back and celebrate properly. We're still nearby, she said slowly. Let me ask her. I heard muffled conversation, then she came back. She wants to come. We'll be there in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. I made it through the rest of the list. Out of the 15 children originally invited, only 4 were able to return. 4 out of 15. But it was something. It was better than nothing. While we waited, the coordinator and her staff worked quickly to clean up the mess my brother's party had left behind. They removed the neon decorations, cleaned up the spilled drinks, repositioned the butterfly cake as the centerpiece. They retrieved the purple and pink decorations from where they'd been discarded and put them back up. It wasn't perfect, you could still see the damage, but it was recognizable as a children's party again. My daughter watched all of this silently, still processing everything that had happened. I sat with her at one of the small tables, holding her hand. I'm sorry, baby, I said quietly. I'm so sorry today turned out like this. It's not your fault, Mommy. I should have been here from the beginning. You had to work. She said it like she was trying to make me feel better, and it broke my heart that she was comforting me instead of the other way around. The first child arrived 15 minutes later, one of my daughter's closest friends from school. The moment she walked in, my daughter's face transformed. Not completely, the hurt was still there, but there was a genuine smile underneath. You came back, my daughter said. Of course, I wanted to swim with you. The other 3 children arrived within the next 20 minutes. It wasn't the crowd I'd planned for, but watching my daughter interact with her friends, seeing her slowly relax into the moment, was worth everything. The coordinator had the photographer come back. Apparently, he'd left when my brother's party started. Confused about the situation, he took pictures of the girls jumping in the pool, playing on the equipment, laughing together. The entertainer was gone, already committed to another event, but the coordinator put on age-appropriate music and the kids didn't seem to mind. At 6 o'clock, we gathered around the butterfly cake. My daughter stood in front of it with her 4 friends surrounding her, and I lit the 7 candles. When we sang Happy Birthday, her smile was real. Not as bright as it should have been, not as carefree as I'd imagined in all my planning, but real. She closed her eyes, made a wish, and blew out the candles. The other girls cheered. For that brief moment, she looked happy. We cut the cake, the beautiful 3-tier vanilla cake with strawberry filling that no one from my brother's party had touched. The kids ate pizza and laughed and seemed to enjoy themselves. On the surface, it looked like a successful party, but I could see the difference in my daughter's eyes. The shadow that hadn't been there this morning. The hesitation in her laughter. Like she was waiting for something else to go wrong. The way she kept looking at me for reassurance. As parents arrived to pick up their children, each one approached me with careful expressions. They'd clearly heard some version of what happened, and they didn't know what to say. Thank you for bringing her back, I told each of them. It means more than you know. By 6:30, it was just my daughter and me in the pavilion. The coordinator's team was cleaning up, breaking down the decorations I'd spent months planning. Did you have fun? I asked my daughter. She nodded. It was good when my friends came back. I'm glad. I pulled her close. You deserved so much better than this. I know you tried, Mommy. You tried to make it perfect. And that was the worst part. I had tried. I'd sacrificed and saved and planned, and it still wasn't enough to protect her from my family's cruelty. We'd salvaged something from the wreckage, but the magic I'd wanted to create for her was gone. The day had been tainted by hurt and betrayal, and no amount of butterfly cake could erase that. Sunday morning, I woke up with absolute clarity about what I needed to do. My daughter was still asleep, exhausted from yesterday's emotional trauma. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee, feeling calmer than I had in years. The first call I made was to my bank. I explained that I needed to cancel the automatic monthly payment that went to my brother's school. The representative walked me through the process. Within 10 minutes, it was done. No more $1,000 transfers leaving my account every month. No more funding his lifestyle while he showed zero appreciation. Next, I called the school's financial aid office. I left a detailed voicemail explaining that I would no longer be providing financial support for the student, effective immediately. I stated clearly that any outstanding balance was not my responsibility, and that they should contact him directly about payment arrangements. Then I sat back and waited. I knew the school would contact him about the sudden loss of funding. I knew my parents would call when they found out. I didn't care. Let them scramble. Let them figure out how to cover $12,000 a year without me. Around noon, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from the coordinator at Riverside Gardens. The subject line read, "Documentation from Saturday's event." I opened it and found a folder of photos and a brief note. I thought you might need these for any potential disputes. Our photographer and staff documented what occurred. I'm so sorry again for what happened to your daughter's party. I clicked through the images. There were time-stamped photos showing the venue setup for my daughter's party. Butterfly decorations, the proper cake, everything arranged beautifully. Then there were photos from when my brother's party had taken over. The neon lights, the crowds of drunk adults, the different cake. The photographer had even captured my daughter crying alone in the corner, and though my heart broke seeing it, I knew these images told the complete story. As I was reviewing the photos, another message came through. This one was from one of the mothers who'd returned with her daughter yesterday. I took some photos when we first arrived and saw what was happening. Thought you might want them. What your family did was unacceptable. Her photos showed the chaos from a parent's perspective. Adults drinking in a children's venue, the discarded butterfly decorations, my brother in the center of it all. The timestamps proved everything. I spent the next hour carefully composing messages. Not to my parents or brother. I had nothing to say to them. But there were a few extended family members who'd always been kind to my daughter. Aunts, uncles, cousins, who might not know the full story once my parents inevitably tried to spin it their way. I kept the messages factual and brief. I attached a few of the most damning photos and wrote, "I wanted you to hear the truth from me. Yesterday was my daughter's 7th birthday party at Riverside Gardens. I'd spent 3 months planning and $5,000 on her celebration. My parents were supposed to supervise until I arrived from work. Instead, they hijacked the entire event for my brother's birthday, which isn't even until next week. They sent her friends away and left her crying alone while they celebrated him. I've cut contact with them and will be protecting my daughter from further harm. I thought you should know the facts." I sent the messages to 4 people: my mother's sister, my father's brother, and 2 cousins who'd always been decent to us. I wasn't trying to create drama. I was simply ensuring the truth existed somewhere other than my parents' version of events. Within an hour, responses started coming in. Shock, disbelief, anger on my daughter's behalf. My aunt called me directly, and I could hear tears in her voice when she said, "I can't believe they would do that to her." To a 7-year-old, "I'm so sorry." By evening, I knew the story was spreading. That's how families work. Information travels. I received a message from one of my brother's fashion school friends, someone I'd met briefly at a family gathering. "Is it true what people are saying about the birthday party?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The fact that the question was being asked meant the story was already out there, making its rounds through his social circles. His carefully cultivated image of the artistic, sophisticated designer was being complicated by the reality of who he actually was. Monday morning, I drafted a formal letter to the school's administration. I attached the photographic evidence and wrote a detailed account of what had occurred. I explained that I had been providing financial assistance under the assumption that I was helping a family member in need, but his actions had demonstrated a fundamental lack of character. I stated that I could no longer in good conscience fund the education of someone who would willingly traumatize a child for his own benefit. I sent copies to the financial aid office, the dean of students, and the registrar. I wanted it documented, official, impossible to dispute. That afternoon, my phone exploded with calls and texts from my parents. I blocked their numbers without reading the messages. My brother tried calling from several different numbers. I blocked those too. I'd said what I needed to say on Saturday. There was nothing left to discuss. Tuesday, the school confirmed receipt of my letter and acknowledged the cancellation of funding. They noted that the student had been informed of his financial situation and would need to make immediate arrangements for payment or face withdrawal from classes. I sat with that information, feeling neither guilt nor satisfaction, just a sense of necessary action taken. I'd supported him for 2 years, sacrificing my own financial security and my daughter's future. He'd shown his gratitude by destroying her birthday party. The equation was simple. The consequence was appropriate. My daughter asked once why we weren't seeing Grandma and Grandpa anymore. I told her the truth, in age-appropriate terms. They hurt you, sweetie. And people who hurt you don't get to be in your life, even if they're family. My job is to protect you. She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Okay, Mommy. The photos stayed saved on my computer, backed up in multiple places. Not because I planned to do anything else with them, but because I knew my family. I knew they'd try to rewrite history to make me the villain. The documentation was insurance against their lies. The money I'd been sending my brother stayed in my account now, $1,200 that month alone. I opened a college fund for my daughter and made the first deposit. The money would go where it had always belonged, toward her future, not his entitlement. 3 weeks after the party, my aunt called. Not my parents. They'd learned their numbers were blocked. But my aunt, my mother's sister, the one who'd been horrified when I told her what happened. "Your mother asked me to reach out," she said carefully. "She wants a chance to talk to you, to explain and apologize." "There's nothing to explain. I was there. I saw what they did. I know. And what they did was terrible. But Vanessa, they're devastated. They realize they made a huge mistake. They realize they got caught," I corrected. "They realize there are consequences for their actions. That's not the same as genuine remorse. Maybe if you just gave them 5 minutes." "No, I'm protecting my daughter." They had one job that day and they chose to destroy her birthday party for him. Again, it's always for him. I'm done watching my daughter learn that she doesn't matter. My aunt sighed. "I understand, I do. They're my sister and brother-in-law. They're hurting. My daughter was hurting when she cried alone in a corner at her own party. Where was their concern then?" She didn't have an answer for that. A few days later, my daughter asked about them. We were having dinner, just the two of us at our small kitchen table, when she said quietly, "Mommy, why don't Grandma and Grandpa visit anymore?" I'd been dreading this conversation but knew it was coming. I set down my fork and chose my words carefully. "Do you remember what happened at your birthday party?" She nodded, her expression becoming guarded. "When Uncle took my party?" "Yes." "And when that happened, how did you feel?" "Sad and scared. I didn't understand why everyone was leaving. Grandma and Grandpa are the ones who told your friends to leave. They're the ones who gave your party to Uncle instead of protecting it for you. They hurt your feelings on purpose." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would they do that?" "Because they weren't thinking about you. They were only thinking about Uncle, like always. And people who hurt you like that, even if they're family, don't get to be in your life anymore. But maybe they're sorry now?" The hope in her voice nearly broke me. Maybe they are. But sorry doesn't fix what they did. And my job is to make sure nobody hurts you like that again. Not even them. She was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said, "I remember crying by myself. All the grown-ups were laughing and having fun, and I was by myself. It was really scary." I pulled her into my lap, holding her tight. "I know, baby. I know. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. I don't want to feel like that again. You won't. I promise." One evening in early October, I was coming home from the grocery store with my daughter when I spotted them. My parents standing by the entrance to our apartment building. My daughter saw them too and went very still beside me. "Vanessa, please," my mother called out as we approached. "We just want to talk. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking." I kept walking, steering my daughter toward the door. "No, we made a mistake," my father said, stepping into our path. "We know that now. We want to make it right." "You can't make it right. Move, please. We're her grandparents." My mother's voice cracked. "You can't just take her away from us." I stopped then, positioning myself between them and my daughter. "You took yourselves away when you prioritized him over her, when you sent 7-year-olds home from a birthday party so your adult son could have a venue he didn't even need. You made that choice. We weren't thinking clearly." My father tried. You thought she didn't matter. You've always thought that. This was just the most obvious example." "That's not true," my mother protested. "We love her. If you loved her, you would have protected her party. Instead, you traumatized her. Now move, or I'm calling the police." They moved. I unlocked the building door and ushered my daughter inside, not looking back at the two people standing on the sidewalk. After that, the packages started arriving. Gifts for my daughter, elaborate toys, expensive clothes, things my parents had never bought her before. Each one came with a card begging for another chance. I donated everything to charity without opening them. I wanted no guilt, no strings, no reminders that they suddenly cared now that they'd lost access. The letters came too. Long handwritten notes from my mother explaining, justifying, pleading, how they'd gotten confused about priorities, how they missed their granddaughter, how families should forgive each other. Those went in the trash unread after the first one. I'd heard enough of their explanations on the day of the party. I didn't need more words trying to minimize what they'd done. My father tried a different approach. He sent a letter to my workplace, somehow thinking that was appropriate. It talked about how I was being unreasonable, how time heals all wounds, how my daughter needed her grandparents. I reported it to HR as inappropriate contact and added the workplace to my list of places they were not permitted to visit. Months passed. The contact attempts became less frequent. The gifts stopped coming. The calls to mutual relatives dwindled. I heard through my aunt that my parents were struggling with the reality of what they'd lost, that my mother cried frequently, that my father had aged considerably, weighed down by regret. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt something, but it was buried under years of being the overlooked daughter, of watching my child be overlooked, of paying for my brother's life while receiving nothing but demands in return. If they were hurting now, it was consequences catching up with choices made over decades. My daughter stopped asking about them after a few months. The wound was healing, or at least scarring over. She had friends, she had me, she had a life that didn't include people who'd proven they couldn't be trusted with her heart. One day, nearly 6 months after the party, I was at the grocery store when I saw my mother in the next aisle. She saw me too. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the distance. She looked older, tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something. I turned my cart and walked away. There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. And my choice would always be to protect my daughter, even from her own grandparents. I heard about my brother's expulsion through my aunt. The school had given him 2 weeks to pay after my funding stopped. When he couldn't, they withdrew him from classes. "Your mother is beside herself," my aunt told me. "They're asking if you'd reconsider." "No, he's 25. He can figure out his own life. He's moving back home, looking for work." Good. That's what adults do. Through various sources, I pieced together what happened next. The job search was brutal for someone who'd never actually worked. No employment history, incomplete portfolio, and the birthday party story had spread enough that some hiring managers had heard whispers. One apparently told him directly, "We heard about what happened with your niece's party." That kind of character concern makes us hesitate. He was furious, ranted about cancel culture and misunderstandings, never acknowledged that hijacking a child's party was actual bad character. He ended up in retail. First at a clothing store where he constantly told customers about his design background until the manager made him stop. Lasted 3 months before getting fired for poor attendance. Then a coffee shop. Complained online about customers having no taste. 6 weeks. A warehouse job ended after 2 weeks. The work was beneath his skill set. He's struggling, my aunt told me. He's depressed. He's 25. Most people his age have been supporting themselves for years. My cousin sent me a screenshot of his social media rant about how families should support each other through education, and some people are too petty to see the bigger picture. I didn't respond. He tried community college but dropped out after 1 semester. Not prestigious enough. He attempted a home design business, charging premium prices for mediocre work and insulting clients who questioned him. It failed quickly. Living with our parents became constant conflict. He'd gone from golden child to unemployed adult in his childhood bedroom. They couldn't fund his lifestyle anymore. They pushed him to take any job. He resented them for not understanding his vision. During one argument, he screamed that this was all my fault, that I'd destroyed his future out of jealousy, that if I hadn't been vindictive, he'd have his degree and career. My father finally snapped. "You destroyed your own future when you took that little girl's birthday party. Vanessa paid for your school for 2 years and you showed zero gratitude. This is on you." My brother threw something and stormed out. He came back. He had nowhere else to go, but the relationship was damaged. He worked temp jobs, call centers mostly. When people recognized him from the party story, he'd get defensive, claiming he was between projects. One encounter ended up posted online. Ran into the guy who stole his niece's party. He's working phones now and still acting entitled. A family friend saw him at a bus stop. He'd sold his car to pay bills. He was staring at his reflection in a store window, muttering, "Nobody understands how hard I worked. Nobody sees what I sacrificed." What he never mentioned was the party. Never expressed remorse. Never connected his current situation to his own choices. Instead, he blamed everyone. Me for cutting funding, our parents for not continuing support, the school for inflexible policies, hiring managers for discrimination, clients for not appreciating quality. Everyone was at fault except him. My parents had created this. They'd built a person who believed the world owed him everything. They'd taught him his wants mattered more than anyone else's needs. They'd enabled him until they couldn't anymore. And now they were stuck with the consequences. A bitter, entitled adult living in their home, unable to support himself, unwilling to accept reality. And I felt no guilt. He'd had a gift, education paid for by a sister who could barely afford it, and he'd shown his appreciation by traumatizing her daughter. The rest was just consequences finding their rightful owner. A year after the party, my daughter turned 8. We celebrated at our apartment with 3 close friends, homemade cake, and a movie night. Simple, intimate, safe. When she blew out her candles, her smile was genuine and uncomplicated. "This is the best birthday ever," she told me later. "Better than last year?" I asked gently. "Way better, because nobody took it away." That's what we'd built together. A life where she understood her worth, where she knew that people who hurt you don't get unlimited chances just because they're family. She was learning boundaries I'd never had growing up. The money I'd been sending my brother now filled her college fund. $1,200 every month, invested carefully, growing into her future. Sometimes I felt rage at how long I'd sent that money elsewhere, but mostly I felt relief that I'd finally stopped. My career had improved. Without the constant drain of supporting my brother, without the emotional exhaustion of managing family dysfunction, I had energy to focus on work. I'd gotten a promotion 3 months ago. More responsibility. Better pay. We had routines now. Saturday morning pancakes. Sunday library trips. Evening walks. Simple things that felt revolutionary because they were ours. Untouched by toxic family dynamics. My daughter stopped asking about my parents after about 6 months. She had friends at school, good relationships with their parents, and a mother who put her first. She didn't need grandparents who'd proven they couldn't be trusted. Sometimes I felt sad about it. Late at night, I mourned the family I'd wanted but never had. The parents who should have protected both their children equally. The brother who should have been an ally. The grandparents my daughter deserved. But in daylight, watching her thrive, I knew I'd made the right choice. She was confident now. She advocated for herself. She understood that her feelings mattered. She was growing into someone who wouldn't tolerate mistreatment. Through my aunt, I heard updates I didn't ask for. My parents had aged noticeably. The weight of losing their granddaughter had marked them physically. My mother had chronic health issues now. My father had grown quieter, more withdrawn, but they'd never actually apologized. Not really. They'd said the words to intermediaries, but always with qualifications. We're sorry, but she's overreacting. We made a mistake, but she won't let us explain. They couldn't quite admit they'd been completely wrong. Their pride wouldn't allow it. So they lived with their loss, bitter about my inflexibility, even as they suffered the consequences of their own actions. My brother was still living with them, still working sporadic jobs, still blaming everyone else. He'd posted online recently about toxic family members who abandon you over misunderstandings. Several people had commented, pointing out that hijacking a child's birthday party wasn't a misunderstanding. He'd deleted the post. He was nearly 27 now, no closer to the design career he'd imagined, no closer to taking responsibility, no closer to understanding that he'd destroyed his own future when he decided his party mattered more than a 7-year-old's tears. Sometimes I wondered if any of them would ever change, if my parents would ever truly acknowledge what they'd done, if my brother would ever see his own culpability. Probably not. People like them rarely did. But that wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was the girl sleeping in the next room, the one who'd learned she deserved respect and protection. My concern was the life we were building. On quiet evenings, I'd sometimes look at the photos from that awful party, the documentation the coordinator had sent. I'd see my daughter crying alone in the corner while adults celebrated around her, and I'd remember why I'd made the choices I'd made. Then I'd look at recent photos, her genuine smile at her 8th birthday, her confident posture at the school talent show, her relaxed expression during our pancake ritual. The contrast told me everything. We were better off, stronger, freer. I'd lost my parents and brother, but I'd gained something more valuable: peace. The peace of knowing my daughter would grow up understanding that family isn't just biology, it's respect, protection, and putting the vulnerable first. My daughter had that now. And watching her thrive in a life built on those principles, I knew that cutting out the toxicity hadn't been cruel. It had been the most loving thing I could have done. She deserved a life where her birthday wasn't stolen, where her feelings mattered, where the people who claimed to love her actually showed up for her. And now she had exactly that.